I love Mondays with Mike Heller.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed bunker in the Badger State, this is I Love Mondays with Mike Heller. Powered by determination and a little bit of duct tape. Here's your host, Mike Heller.
So here we go. It is Milwaukee Brewers opening day, and we get underway, and we'll take you to Milwaukee and American Family Field in just a couple of minutes. For those watching live on X or YouTube, this is obviously in advance of the opening game. 105 first pitch today in Milwaukee. 110 first pitch today in Milwaukee. Jacob Misiorowski will throw that first pitch. And in left field, it will not be Jackson Chourio. There's the breaking news on opening day. And this is shitty to come out of the gate with, but it is. Jackson Chourio was hit on the hand in prior to the World Baseball Classic in a tune-up game back on March the 4th. Played through some of that pain, and then on a check swing in one of the exhibition games against Cincinnati earlier this week, had that pain ramp up. They did x-rays. They found out that he's got a hairline fracture of the metatarsal of his third finger I believe it's on his left hand. So he is going to begin the regular season on the 10-day IL, but it's not a 10-day stay. It's just where they're going to put him now, and it's anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks. Lane Grindle will join us live from American Family Field here in a couple of minutes, and we'll dive into some of the particulars about that. But it is, it is without question not the kind of news you want to get on opening day for the Brewers, who have at times, not even at times, of recent iteration, the Brewers have been an unhealthy team when the postseason began. We saw it with Brandon Woodruff on more than one occasion. So this is, if you're going to have an injury like this to one of your budding superstars, have it be now and not in September. If indeed September is a month that matters, and it should be for the Brewers, having this injury now is a much better scenario than if it played its way out much later. But that is the storyline as we come on the air today, and I alternate now on these. So James says, glorious opening day. Mike, I appreciate you, James. Thanks for being a viewer on YouTube. And for those who are on YouTube, please share with friends and colleagues and like-minded sports listeners and viewers. We appreciate that. That's the direction we got to go organically to grow what we're doing. And also from Mulcahy, happy opening day to everyone. Have a great show, Heller. Let's go Brew Crew. I'm in with all of that. So I'm not at the ballpark today. Kari and I will go over on Sunday. I'm going to be there a lot this year. But opening day today, with the timing of this and not being able to quite have technically ready to be on the road for a road show yet, that'll happen soon. But especially with today and how chaotic opening day can be in and around the stadium, decided just to keep it right here. By the way, before we get started and thank sponsors, had a nice visit last night at Red and White Wine Bar with Grant Bills, who I was on his Wisconsin Sports Talk radio show earlier this week, and Zach Heilprin, who works, who has his own podcast, but also works on Midwest Family Radio out of Madison. And he covers, from a reporting standpoint, he covers Badger sports and all the sports, but at a very high level, super smart. And Colton Bartholomew, who writes for the Wisconsin State Journal. They sat opposite me at the bar last night. I was behind the bar, but had a few bourbons. Zach's not a bourbon guy. He had some beer. Not that I need to tell everybody this, but yeah. Grant had beer and then went to bourbon, and Colton was just on the bourbon side. So it was a fun night. Fun to visit with them. Another buddy of mine, Jim Holden, and a couple of his guys came in earlier. It was a good Wednesday night. I'm super excited about what's in front of us with the Brewers opening their season, and we'll get to that conversation here in a moment. Let me thank our sponsors, because that's the reason why we get to do what we're doing with I Love Mondays, Monday through Friday, live at 10 a.m. on Twitter, on X, and live at 10 a.m. on YouTube, but then downloadable wherever you get your podcast. So if that is how you're consuming this later today, understand that we're doing this live at 10 a.m. So some of the news and information as it relates to the Brewers opening day will be updated as time goes on. And if you listen to it, download it, and listen later in the day, obviously I wouldn't have known the result, but they'll probably win 7-1 is what I'm thinking. Brewers at 110 today. I Love Mondays is presented by M3 Insurance, helping businesses and individuals manage risk, purchase insurance, and provide the right benefits to their employees. So if that's part of your role with your business, either that you own or work for, go to m3ins.com. That's M3 Insurance, m3ins.com. I Love Mondays is presented by Neuroscience Group, excellence in brain, spine, and pain care. Choose Neuroscience Group in Northeast Wisconsin, neurosciencegroup.com. You know, in sports, you trust the right team. And I've got some bold predictions that I trust about this Brewers team that I'm going to get to in a little bit. Well, it's the same for your health. Trust the right team. It's no different. Neuroscience Group brings together specialists in neurology, spine, and pain management, working together to get you back at full strength. That's neurosciencegroup.com. All right, so let's jump into the mix here. I just have to do, I say this out loud, so I remind myself to do the right things at the right time. And one of those is to push certain buttons and then bring in a guest. His name is Lane Grindle. And I always want to check, Lane, you can hear me, and I'll see if I can hear you.
All good. I hear you crystal clear, Mike.
That is perfect. Well, let's begin. I begin with a thank you. You've been calling Brewers games since 2016. So this is your 11th season with a microphone in front of you for Brewers baseball.
Yeah, it's wild how fast that's gone too. I was having a conversation with my daughter yesterday about the fact that this is my 11th year, and I've been married to her mother for 20 years this summer. And I was like, another 20 years, like that's a little wild.
Right.
Another 11 years, and all my kids are gone, and we're empty nesters. So, yeah, I mean, 11 years. What a trip it's been. I mean, my first year was 2016. The team overachieved that year. It was not a winning team, but it was a team that a lot of people thought was going to lose maybe 100 plus games. And I think they won 73, which was a pretty good accomplishment. And then, of course, from 2017 on, this has been quite a ride.
So the news today out of the gate is not great news. So I gave an update as we open, but maybe you have a little bit more insight to provide on Jackson Chourio, who's going to open on the 10-day IL, but it's going to be a longer stay than 10 days on a hairline fracture on one of his hands, one of his fingers. Fill us in on what you know and how this plays.
Yeah, my understanding, and again, I'm not totally in the mix on all of this, but my understanding is that this is from when he got hit by a pitch in the WBC early, very, very early on.
March 4th, in fact.
Yeah. And so that was a concern at the time, of course, but he played through it and played okay through it, frankly. But there was a little bit of an aggravation to it again in the exhibition series against the Reds on a check swing. So he came out of that game maybe an at-bat earlier than he would have and got a scan. And this is what the result has been. It's certainly not a great thing, but you always are going to have adversity in a season. Like it just, you don't escape it. In fact, I will tell you right now, I will promise you this won't be the only piece of adversity this team deals with in 2026. There will be other things that happen, and you just try to navigate it the best you can. And that is why the Brewers' approach with so much depth over the years has been one of the real strengths to this team. Remember, they were without Jackson for a month last year and played some of their best baseball. And that isn't necessarily related to one another because Jackson makes this team better, but it shows you that this is a team that can absorb losses like this and still play at a very, very high level. And I think you'll still see that from this team. I think the hope is with Jackson that you give it some rest and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I think what they're saying is, 2 to 4 weeks. I've seen 3 to 5 weeks. It's just really hard to tell. but he's also the kind of guy that probably doesn't need a lot of time on a rehab assignment if that's in the cards for him when he is ready to come back. So I think this will be a bump in the road, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that Jackson Chourio doesn't have a great season for the Brewers still.
No, and shoot, Lane, it stinks to begin the season this way on an opening day announcement like this, even if it would have happened last week. You say, oh, okay, well, you've got a little time. So it happens today, but much better today than what we've had in recent years with the, announcements that come out on the last day of the regular season that Brandon Woodruff is unavailable in the postseason. You can survive this now, certainly, and they'll do it. The corresponding move is Blake Perkins, which was a bit of a surprise when he was sent down last week. So he comes back up, and that's one of the things that you were just alluding to is that the depth in the outfield, whether you play Yelich out there more often or Lockridge or Blake Perkins or others, they do have a great system in place that allows others to step in.
Yeah, no question about that. And we saw Yelich play a decent amount of left field over the last week and a half or so of spring training. So I think you will see Yelich out there some in left. And there's some different ways that Pat Murphy can put this lineup together that can get Andrew Vaughn and Jake Bauers in the lineup at the same time. Whether Bauers plays some left field, whether maybe Bauers or Vaughn DH some because Yelich is able to play in left. I mean, there's some different flexibility options for Pat Murphy when he puts this lineup together. And so I'll be curious to see how he puts this lineup together on a day-to-day basis without Jackson, because you certainly would like to have him in there. Because he's a big moment guy. We've seen that from him over the last couple of years. We know how talented he is. We know he's going to put up good numbers over the course of the year. But he's one of those guys that, especially on opening day, you would just be anticipating that he would do something special here in front of the home crowd. So anytime we get robbed of seeing Jackson play baseball, that's a tough day because he's that electric and exciting of a player. But I do think they have the bodies to cover this and to keep themselves in very good shape.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. A little Matt Kavanaugh, terrible way to start the day. Not this, but with the Jackson Chourio news, and totally get and understand that. Let me ask you a question that we typically ask about a football team, sometimes a basketball team. It doesn't get asked this way as often in Major League Baseball, but the Brewers had an extraordinary season last year, and then the offseason is always interesting. In Milwaukee, it's a little bit different than in other places. But as you view it, here's a media-based question. Are the Brewers better today, a better team today, than the one that left the field in Los Angeles after bowing out in the National League Championship Series?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think it would be hard to say yes to that only because that was a team that had gone through the storm together. They had experienced all these highs and lows. They had played at such a high level. They had all this belief in each other. You start over at the beginning of a year. I mean, I think there is a foundation of guys here that have won a lot of baseball with the Brewers organization. They understand the culture, but you start to make the entree again, right, on opening day. So there's a lot of things that have to happen between now and this coming September to get back to that point. If you're just looking at it from a personnel standpoint, look, you're going to have a new third baseman, and Caleb Durbin was tremendous for the Brewers a year ago. But Luis Rengifo, can he be that guy? I think he can put up those kind of numbers. He's put up those kind of numbers before in the past. I think there's more depth from a pitching standpoint to this group than last year. I mean, last year, if you look at last year in April, and this is not to disparage anybody, but Vinny Capra was the opening day third baseman. I think the Brewers are infinitely better today on opening day than they were last year on opening day at that spot and in other spots. They have more answers in terms of who can be in the rotation. They're going to have guys that would have been great answers for the Brewers last year in the rotation that are going to be in AAA and might be in AAA for a good chunk of this season. So I just think they have more options in that regard. But to say, are they better than the team that walked off the field in LA? I think that's hard because so much of baseball is what you go through together as a group that makes you stronger, that makes you better. You're defining roles. And all that stuff still has to happen for this group because it's its own individual story and its own individual team.
Lane, one of the oddities, I think, in a very positive way, is not only did the Brewers win the division last year and lead all of Major League Baseball in wins and played in the National League Championship Series, but they bring back the bulk of that roster, minus Freddie, and Caleb Durbin and some others, but they have made moves that we're all well aware of. But they also feature that while they are rated as the number one minor league system in all of baseball from a talent standpoint, which is a bit of a rare combo, that you're a really good team at the major league level that has sustained some success, and you have the best minor league system in baseball, especially for a small market team to be in both places at one time.
It's really a unique spot. I mean, the Dodgers have been able to do that a lot, and there's a reason why they're having the success that they're having. Obviously, we know that they're sprinkling in a few free agent contracts in that as well, but they've been able to maintain a strong farm system throughout all of this, which is it's hard to do. It really, I think, is a great compliment to your front office and the way they're able to multitask and do so many good things at once to be competitive up here, but also have an eye on the future at the same time. I was just talking to Pat Murphy about 30 minutes ago, and we were actually talking about how all of these guys like Terang, like Frelick, these young players, right, that were on their way up and we'd been waiting for them. Then they get up here and like these guys are in years 3 and 4 now and 5. Even Jackson's in year 3. Yeah. Like these guys are still young players, but they've been around the block now and they understand what the expectation is at the big league level, what the expectation is within the Brewers organization. And this has really been, I think, one of the keys to the Brewers' success has been, regardless of who's in that clubhouse, the understanding of the culture and the way the Brewers play baseball has been crystal clear. There's been no muddled message when it comes to that. And I think that starts with the front office to the manager on down. And Christian Yelich is kind of the grandfather of all that within the clubhouse with the players. But these guys all get it. And so now you're kind of entering a phase where we're going to start seeing maybe a Cooper Pratt make his way up here. Maybe not this year, maybe this year, but certainly by next year, you would think that he's going to be really close to getting up here at the big league level. We're maybe within a year or two of a Jesus Madej making his way to the big leagues. And for those guys, when they get here, to have guys like Bryce and Sal and a list of others that just understand how the Brewers play baseball and be able to teach that to that next group, that's why the Brewers have been able to be so consistent, because they've had the right guys in the center of that core for such a long time.
What does today mean to you? And I see your guys milling around, from Kent Sommerfeld and Lev is around. But for you, Lane, opening day is special for the fan base, certainly. But for you, it's also, I would assume, a special treat. It begins a grind, but it's a chosen grind. And you're one of the fortunate few that is in the position you are, calling Major League Baseball games in your 11th season for the Brewers. What's opening day like?
I have so many emotions on opening day. I mean, it's the hope, it's the optimism, it's the this could be the year. I mean, I think everybody has those feelings and those thoughts. I always think of you, obviously, on today. I mean, this is a big day where you think of him and what his presence was like and the things that he would say or the things he would do to make you relax on opening day, to realize it's just another baseball game. And you mentioned that, you're entering a grind, but I just don't see it that way. I get it, but this is such a love of labor, what we do, and the rhythm of the regular season for me, there's just nothing like it. And honestly, the grind, as great as Arizona is, I mean, the weather's wonderful, and you don't work maybe every day as a broadcaster down there, but the games are a lot harder down there than they are when you get here. When you get here, you've got this great atmosphere. The games matter. Everybody's invested. Every pitch means a little bit more. You don't have a million substitutions in the 7th inning that you're trying to keep track of. So I actually think the job, even though the stakes are higher, the job gets easier now because you have so many things that carry you through the day. You don't have to manufacture your own energy or excitement. The crowd kind of lifts you through it as a broadcaster. So I love this day. I absolutely love it. Now, I'll also tell you this. I love game 2 just as much
Yes.
because game 2 is a little bit more your normal routine.
And more
This
baseball. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more baseball. This is, you are out of your element and out of your routine a little bit on opening day. So it's a little bit of a mad rush to get to the first pitch, and then it's kind of an exhale once the game gets started. But I love this day. I love to see all the fans tailgating and the smells of the parking lot. And everybody's wearing a suit for one day, basically, here at the ballpark. I mean, it might be the only sport coat you see me wear all year.
Right.
So there's something special about it. And look, the game 1 of an NLDS is incredible. The World Series would be amazing. All those days are really cool, and the stakes are really high. But the one thing I love about opening day is that it's a universal day for every single team in baseball. Everybody gets to be a part of the optimism and the hope. The story has not been written yet for anybody, and I think that's really cool.
And you get a little double dip for you today because a team you care a little bit about plays tonight at 6:30, and so the timing works. You get a little Nebraska. Could be going to the Elite Eight. Shoot, either Nebraska or Iowa is going to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. For those that don't know, Lane's got a fairly significant Nebraska background.
Yeah, and I'm from Iowa, so most of my friends I grew up with are big Hawkeye fans. So I've been hearing a lot from them over the last 3 or 4 days. So yeah, I'll be a nervous wreck tonight. I just hope that I have a Brewers win, in my back pocket as I get ready to sit down and watch the Huskers try to. They've already made history, but try to make a little bit more history for that program that has just known nothing but failure, unfortunately, in that sport, for the lifetime of that sport existing at the University of Nebraska. So it really has been a magical run for them. And Fred Hoiberg's a wonderful, classy man, so I couldn't be more happy for him.
By the way, he can't hear me, but Mauer's light blue jacket is lovely.
It's a good jacket, isn't it? He even, come here, Josh, come here. Look at the pocket square.
I know, right? I mean, that is fancy. That is a good look, and that's also the only time he'll wear a jacket this year. Is that fair to say?
I would say probably the only time either one of us wears a jacket this year at the ballpark. We might, postseason, we would probably do it, but outside of that, that's probably it.
What's up with Sommerfeld not wearing a sport coat today? He's behind you. He's just wearing a quarter zip.
Well, when you've done it 41 years, Mike, you just make your own rules.
Hey,
look at that guy.
Yeah, look at him. He's one of my faves right there, right behind you. I'm going to come out and see you guys. I'll stop up on Sunday. I'm not going to be at the ballpark today, but I'll come out and see you guys on Sunday. Hey, I know you're busy, so I wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you saying yes to doing this on opening day. We can't wait. All of us are, you see, I'm wearing the colors. I'm a fan. I can't wait for today. Love listening to you and Josh and Lev all season long, and your buddy behind you, Sommerfeld, is fantastic. I appreciate you, Lane. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk down the road.
Mike, all the same right back to you. Appreciate you very much, and grateful to be asked to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Lane Grindle joining us from American Family Field in the broadcast booth there. It is the Brewers and the White Sox today. We didn't get into game specifics, but I think the story that kind of steals the day is the deal for Jackson Chourio. So if you just tuned in, and obviously for those who are paying attention, Jackson Chourio, the announcement coming out earlier today that he's going to begin the season on the 10-day IL, but it's going to be longer than that. Suffered a fracture in his hand when he was hit by a pitch all the way back on March the 4th, but it was aggravated on a check swing, he said, against Cincinnati in exhibition game number 2. They had a scan on it, took a look at it, and he's going to begin the season on the IL with a fracture. Today at American Family Field, they will bring up Blake Perkins. That's the corresponding roster move. I don't believe the lineups are out today. And if you're listening to this downloaded later as a podcast, the starting lineup wouldn't matter in that regard. Just for those watching live, I don't think we've seen that yet. But the Brewers are going to be shorthanded to begin the season. Blake Perkins, the corresponding roster move. Haven't seen today's lineup yet, so we'll see how that plays itself out. Let me run through a couple of things about this. So Jacob Mizorowski is going to open. He is the opening day starter for the Brewers against Shane Smith for the Chicago White Sox. The Brewers. All right, so this is where I go to one of our sponsors. Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino, bet above the rest. All of our lines, when we talk about game lines and futures and things like that, all provided by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. And our broadcast partner in that regard, if you've got the itch to bet on sports, there is no better place than Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino to do that. So here's some of the lines as we sit from them. The over-under on season wins for the Brewers this year from Potawatomi is 85.5. 85.5 wins is the over-under bet on the Brewers. I'll get to my pick on that in a minute. Today, the Brewers are minus 205 as a favorite to beat the White Sox. So all that means, if you're not a bettor, is if you bet $100, you would win $49, get your 100 back. So you would bet 100 and get 149 back if the Brewers won. That's just the money line, minus 205. The Brewers are minus 136 to make the playoffs. So that coincides with the over-under 85.5, meaning that if you bet $100 for the Brewers to make the playoffs today, you'd win 175, 75 profit if indeed the Brewers made it. The division winner, according to the over-under line, would be the Cubs at 88.5 wins. That's their over-under line. I think that's fair. It gets me to a little bit to the point of, okay, from a prediction standpoint. From a prediction standpoint, then I'm going to answer my own question that I posed to Lane Grindle about whether the Brewers are better today than the team that walked off the field after being swept by the LA Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. So I think that this team is a 90-win team, 97 a year ago. I think a 90-win team would be another very impressive season. Now, does 90 wins win the division? I don't know. If you pressed me, regardless of whether I'm wearing this, if I'm going to be honest about it, if I had to pick a division winner today, I would pick the Cubs. I think most betting experts, that's what Potawatomi has. The Cubs installed as 88.5 wins is their over-under line, and that's 3 wins better in that regard than the Brewers. I think the Brewers will push to win the division again, but if I was pushed, and I am pushing myself, if I have to pick a division winner today, I would pick the Cubs. So keeping that in mind. So bold predictions as we get this season underway for the Brewers. All right. So I just told you, I think they're a 90-win team. I think that would be a wild card. But like I just finished saying, I think Brewers, Cubs are very much similar. I think the Cubs roster overall is going to be a touch better. So I would pick the Cubs to win the division. Not a very popular pick, but that's not the fan in me. That's the guy who kind of looks at it and sees what I see. I would pick the Cubs, and I hate the Cubs. So let's start with that. I got the Brewers at 90 wins, 72 losses, and a wild card. I would install Bryce Terang as a top 5 vote getter when it's all said and done in MVP voting. I would take the bet, the futures bet on Bryce Terang to win the MVP because it would pay handsomely. All right, so I'm going to do this even though for those who are downloading it later and listening this afternoon, or after 11:30, which is typically about the time that you can get the download. If you've subscribed to it, automatically happens, or you download it directly. Here's the Brewers lineup as it installs here on opening day. Bryce Terang is going to lead off and play second base. I like this good, but I wonder if Chourio would have been the leadoff hitter if he doesn't open the season on the injured list. But this is how it's going to be now for a while. I would think that Bryce Terang is going to be your leadoff hitter. He is today. William Contreras will bat second and catch. And I think one of the interesting things about Contreras is he played all of last year with a fractured middle finger on his glove hand. That's also the bottom hand of the swing when you're at the plate. I think it robbed him of a lot of his gap and some of his home run power. It just didn't produce the way he can and does produce. So I look at William Contreras in a bounce back scenario this year to have a much better season if indeed he stays healthy, and he's healthy out of the gate. Last year he played with that fractured finger the entire season. The third hitter in today's lineup is Christian Yelich, and he is going to DH. And I wondered if on the Chourio news, if Yelich would be in the outfield. He will open, hitting third and DHing. Batting fourth and playing first base is Andrew Vaughn. Vaughn is going to hit first, going to bat fourth and play first base. Jake Bauers is also in the lineup. Here's the lineup. And we just talked about this with Lane Grindle. Bauers is going to play left field. If you can get Jake Bauers, who had an extraordinary spring, if you can get Bauers and Vaughn in the lineup on the same day, that's a win. And that's what they're going to do. Nobody in any level of baseball had a better spring at the plate than Jake Bauers. That doesn't always translate to the season opening, but he is going to bat fifth and play left field today. Sal Frelick will bat sixth and play right field. And Frelick is just one of those guys who is every time you watch him play, he does something that a hockey player does. I mean, he's a tremendous effort guy, unafraid of running into walls and diving. His uniform's never going to come out of a game clean. And so he's that guy. Hamilton, who they acquired, is going to play third base. So we wondered about how the Brewers will handle that third base position. In the opening game, it's not Luis Renifo. It is Hamilton at third base. Garrett Mitchell is going to open in center field, and he'll bat eighth in this lineup. Garrett Mitchell, who, I talk about Bauers having an incredible spring at the plate. I don't know if you could have had a worse spring offensively, statistically, than Garrett Mitchell. But they believe in the talents there, and I'm so excited that Garrett Mitchell, I'm a fan of Garrett Mitchell, especially of the upside, and obviously he's going to have to stay healthy. And Joey Ortiz is going to bat ninth and play shortstop, Jacob Mizorowski on the mound. So again, Terang, Contreras, Yelich, Vaughn, Bauers, Frelick, Hamilton, Mitchell, Ortiz. That's the Brewers opening day lineup. And we go back to the breaking news as we came on the live podcast today, and that is the Jackson Chourio with a fracture in one of his the metatarsal of one of his fingers on a hit by a pitch from back on March 4th. Aggravated on a check swing against Cincinnati in an exhibition game on Tuesday. Had a scan, and he'll begin on the injured list with that fracture. So that's going on. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you want to send me a note on what I have from a prediction standpoint of the Brewers going 90-72. Come back with me and tell me what you think of that. You can tweet at me at Heller Sports. Our show is streaming live on X. So you can do that. Or if you're watching on YouTube, send in your comments and I'll see them there. Mulcahy asked, how soon until we get a live show from Red and White? That's a fair question, and it's one that we're talking about. Now, what I'd like to do here, I'm gonna kind of brainstorm live on the podcast. But what I'd like to do, and Mulcahy says he'd be there for sure. What I'd like to do is potentially do one Friday show a month from Red and White, and then follow it with a bourbon tasting, in 11:30 or noon for those that couldn't make the live show at 10 o'clock, but invite you in to open the doors up at 10 a.m. when we do one of these live, and I have a guest host out there with me, co-host out there with me, maybe one of the Superfan Tuesday guys. We'll see. And then do a bourbon tasting afterwards that you could stick around and be part of or not. So what do you think of that? Mulcahy doesn't like that I picked the Cubs to win the division. Not because I like them. Good baseball team, good roster. So that's part of that. And then my buddy Barry says, yeah, he I don't know what the double backslash U-26 is. Yeah, Barry likes bourbon. I know that. So yeah, we'll put something together and put those plans in place and then let you know how that works as we roll forward. The other news of the day, this is a really active game day, right? If you're a sports fan and you don't have something that you like today, that's on you. I mean, that's on you. Here's what's going on as we get through this day. Brewers and White Sox in a season opening home opener at 1:10. By the way, 53 degrees and cloudy at game time. Roof's going to be closed. Certainly it could be open, but they're pretty conservative on that front. Maybe some rain later in the afternoon there. So 53 degrees outside, about 68 degrees inside at American Family Field today for the opener. But if you're, tailgating, I mean, how good is this? I've been there for a lot of opening days that were no good weather-wise. This is pretty good. Tomorrow is an off day, and then they'll play Saturday and Sunday. I'll head over Sunday, but looking very much forward to that. So Brewers and White Sox at 1:10, Mizorowski and Shane Smith in that one. Right after that game likely goes final, pretty close to that timing, Wisconsin men's hockey in Worcester, Mass against Dartmouth. This is college hockey's NCAA tournament begins with quarterfinal action. There's only 16 teams that make the NCAA hockey tournament for the men, and Wisconsin will open in Worcester, Mass, and they will play Dartmouth. Now, Michigan State plays the first game in Worcester, and Wisconsin will get the winner of that one. So it could be that they get Michigan State. If Wisconsin can get by Dartmouth, they would play for a shot to go to the Frozen Four, which this year is in Las Vegas. That's at 4:00 this afternoon, and I believe it's on ESPNU. If somebody has a correction to that, let me know. But I believe that's on ESPNU. And then if you're so inclined and in the Madison area, Wisconsin women's basketball plays in the WBIT, which is college women's basketball's second tournament. Not the women's NIT. The second tournament from quality standpoint is the WBIT. And Big Ten teams have won it the last 2 years. This is Wisconsin's first trip into it. It's only the third year that they've done this tournament. They won their first two games. They won on the road at Oregon State and on the road at Miami. And now they're home tonight against Harvard. That game will tip at 6:30. We got to talk about that at some length yesterday with John Audius. And then here's what goes on tonight in the NCAA tournament. The opening game is Texas and Purdue. That is at 6:10 on CBS. The game that begins 20 minutes later that Lane Grindle was talking about, that is number 9 seeded Iowa against 4th seeded Nebraska, a pair of Big Tens. There are 4 Big Ten teams that play tonight. Those two play one another. So either Iowa or Nebraska is going on to the Elite Eight. I think Purdue is going to be in the Elite Eight as well. I think they'll beat Texas. But we're going to find out. That's the 6:10. Iowa, Nebraska is 6:30. CBS and TBS are the broadcast partners tonight. The late games, 8:45 Central Time and 9:05 Central Time. The 8:45 tip is Arkansas and Arizona. Arizona, the 1 seed. Arkansas, the 4 seed. This was the Wisconsin bracket that High Point knocked them out of 1 week ago today. Arkansas advanced out of that little bracket, and they get the top seed, Arizona, in this one. I always like to watch what the path would have been, hoping that Wisconsin was going to be on that path, but that ended abruptly. So it is Arkansas that has moved on. That's chalk. That's the 4 seed against the 1 seed in Arizona. And the nightcap tonight is also chalk. It is a 3 seed Illinois against the 2 seed Houston. And that is at 9:05. That game is on TBS. The games tomorrow are Michigan State and UConn. That's a 3 versus 2. Number 1 Duke against 5 St. John's. Number 1 Michigan against 4th seeded Bama. And 6th seeded Tennessee against 2nd seeded Iowa State. again, if you go back to this tournament and just do it by the numbers, 12 of the 16 teams are chalk seeds. In other words, they were the better seeded team through their first 2 games. So a 1 seed, a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and a 4 seed. Those are the chalk lines going in right now. And 12 of the 16 are there. There's a 5 seed in St. John's. There's a 6 seed in Tennessee, a 9 seed in Iowa, and an 11 seed in Texas. That is how this all stacks up. Mike sends in, bourbon brunch. So Mike would be in. Yeah, we're going to do this thing. My issue will be the timing, the date on this, but we'll keep you apprised. And just for those who weren't paying attention or just tuned in, we're going to do once a month is my goal. Once a month, we would take this show and do it live at Red and White Wine and Bourbon Bar in Wanakee on Main Street. I know it's 10 a.m. that we're doing it live, but open up the doors and let you come in for that. And then at 11:30 or noon, I'd bring somebody in and we'd do a bourbon tasting. That would be a paid deal, I think. Affordable. And we would do that and just kind of bring it all together on a Friday at Red and White Wine and Bourbon Bar in Wanakee. All right. So let me do this for a moment. Let me remind you and thank our sponsors who are in on this show, including our partner sponsors. And so our injury report, the Jackson Chourio injury report, is presented by Habish and Rotier, 13 locations to ensure you get a hometown attorney who understands your life and the impacts of your injury and is personally committed to your recovery. So as we understand it and, go through the process here, I'm going to reiterate what we know about Jackson Chourio. Placed on the 10-day IL, left hand fracture, hairline fracture, going to probably miss between 2 to 5 weeks. All right, so think of where we sit and then think of the opening of May. Blake Perkins is recalled to take that spot on the Brewers major league roster. Matt Arnold, this comes from Kurt Hogue. Matt Arnold talking about Jackson Chourio's injury, tests that were run, and why he's playing in the WBC spring games after March 4th. Let me go through this a little bit. I want to read what Kurt Hogue has put out on a conversation with Matt Arnold, the Brewers GM. Was it surprising? Quote, a little tough. He got hit in the WBC and was dealing with a little bit of pain, and then it showed back up on a check swing the other day. We got another image on it, and it looks like it's fractured very slightly, but it's something we want to be really cautious about because of how much he means to our team. Obviously, a tough blow for us and a tough blow for the kid because he's such a good person and means a lot to our clubhouse. The follow-up question, what was Chourio dealing with after the WBC? Matt Arnold, quote, it was a little bit sore, but felt like maybe it was something he could just play through, and it just got a little bit re-aggravated, close quote. Follow-up question, was the fracture there on initial x-rays? Quote from Matt Arnold, it's unclear. Could have been. It didn't show up on x-rays, so he was trying to play through it, and it was a little bit sore. It could have been one of those things, and it just gets a little bit aggravated against the Reds, and it showed up on the image that they took, close quote. Final question. Would you have preferred to shut him down in the WBC after the hit by pitch? Matt Arnold, quote, anytime you have guys in these types of spots, you always worry about it when they go play for somebody else. It's certainly a possibility that a guy gets hurt, but it's also a great event for the league. It is the push and pull of the World Baseball Classic. It is the push and pull of Olympic hockey for NHL teams whose players are playing at full contact and full speed when it matters the most in the Olympics, and yet coming back to their NHL club that's paying them millions, sometimes tens of millions or 20s of millions of dollars per year to perform for them and then have that go away. So I think of, and I know that there's a segment of the fan base that that enjoys the WBC, but they don't want their players in it. And I get that, and I fully understand it. I watched almost all of the WBC, especially as it pertained to USA games. And Chourio was with Team Venezuela from, he's part of the whole deal, right? So I looked at that maybe a little bit differently. Baseball structures a little bit differently in this regard because it's not the contact sport that the National Hockey League and hockey goes to, or football doesn't have an equivalent. Basketball does. Typically, it doesn't happen in the season because Olympic basketball is in the summer out of the NBA campaign. So, but Giannis has been featured in, world tournaments, and maybe not the best scenario for Bucks fans or the Bucks that Giannis has put himself in that setting. But I understand it from a player standpoint. I think the World Baseball Classic is brilliant and it's fantastic for the game. Jackson Chourio could have been hit by a pitch in an exhibition game. In fact, I would argue there's a better likelihood that playing through spring training games that you'll wear one on your hand. You're going to get fewer at bats per game in spring training because you're not playing. But in the WBC, you're playing limited numbers of games. I would argue against pitchers trying to figure things out and impress their potential bosses in spring training that you would have a greater likelihood of wearing one. And he got hit by a pitch. I don't look at it. I look at it negatively from a Brewer standpoint. They're going to miss him for about a month. And that stinks. But if you just said to me, hey, you have a choice, you're going to let him go play in the WBC or not? To me, it wouldn't even be a choice. Of course, we're going to have him go play. The Brewers had 14 players play from their major league and minor league rosters, 14 players under contract with the Milwaukee Brewers, major and minor league deals. They had 14 of them play in the WBC. I have no problem with that. And that Chourio is going to miss a month based on a result of something that happened as he was playing for Venezuela in the WBC. Again, hindsight is 2020, but I don't have an issue with that. Some people can view that a little bit differently, but that's how I would view it. Mike says Jackson and Garrett, Jackson Chourio, Garrett Mitchell remind me, unfortunately, of Molitor. Phenomenal talent, but nagging, constant, inopportune injuries. Yeah, I suppose the difference is that Molitors were all early, and then they kind of subsided and went away. Had a tremendous career. So I don't know that Molitor, it started that way, no question. Didn't end that way. He was very healthy, many times a DH, though, as he got later into his career. So, yeah, Chourio's had a couple of soft tissue issues, right? He had the hamstring a year ago, and now he's got the hand. That's not soft tissue. That was being hit by a pitch. Mitchell's are a little bit different. He's got 2 times on the same shoulder with essentially the same injury, and both from effort, right? Diving and doing things of that nature. So, yeah, I certainly hope for his case and for the Brewers, for that matter, that Garrett Mitchell finds his offensive stroke and stays healthy. Because from a talent standpoint, there's a significant upside for Garrett Mitchell, a significant how good this guy can be concept with the guy who's going to start today in center field for the Brewers. So that's kind of where we sit there. The Bucks lost last night, 130-99. They're now 29-43. Magic number for elimination is 2 to Orlando. 10 games remaining. So the Bucks, that ship sailed quite a while ago, but just the reminder of who they are in the moment. And then I found this interesting, and we'll finish today's content with this. The Major League Baseball reported payrolls, okay, not including tax and deferrals, entering opening day. This is from a USA Today piece that ran last night. It doesn't take into account deferred money, and the Dodgers are living in the land of deferral as far as paying their players. So they're not the highest paid team, again, including tax, the salaries due contracts for players on opening day. Number one in baseball at $350, I'm going to round up, $358 million, the New York Mets. Number two, I'll round down on this one using math skills, the LA Dodgers at $322 million. Again, not including tax and deferrals. That is their Major League Baseball opening day payroll. Mets, 358. Dodgers, 322. Yankees next at $301 million. There are three teams in baseball that will have opening day salary commitments to their players, not including tax and deferral, of over $300 million. Let me skip to the bottom, and then I'll get to the relevant Brewers where they stack in here. So when we talk about the Mets at 358, the lowest opening day payroll belongs to the Cleveland Guardians, and they were a playoff team a year ago. Their opening day payroll will measure at $70 million. So quick math, 358 to 70. That is $280 million gap between the highest paid team and the lowest paid team. And you're talking about whether there will be a work stoppage when we finish the 2026 season. That is not a problem with the game on the field, because I love the game on the field. That's a problem for baseball. And that gap between the Mets at 358 and the Cleveland Guardians at 70, it's a significant conversation to be had. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams in Major League Baseball that will open with payrolls of under $100 million. 8. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams over 200 million. That's the problem. And I still don't think it's a problem on the field. Let me run through the pertinent other teams of interest. The Chicago Cubs are 9th in Major League Baseball in opening day payroll, not including tax and deferrals, at $221 million. The Milwaukee Brewers are 19th, pretty consistent, right about 19th in baseball. Yearly, the Brewers opening day commitments on salary payroll for their major league roster is $125,467,000. They're 19th. Ahead of them, Kansas City, Seattle, Baltimore, the Angels, Arizona, Texas, Boston, San Francisco, Detroit. That's 10 through 18. And then the top 10 in order: the Mets, Dodgers, Yankees, Phillies, Blue Jays, Braves, Astros, Padres, Cubs, Tigers. That's the top 10. Let me, off the top of my head, go through which of those teams were playoff teams a year ago. The Mets were not. The Dodgers won the World Series. The Yankees were in the postseason. The Phillies were in the postseason. Toronto was in the postseason. I'm trying to remember if Atlanta was. They're 6th in payroll. Houston, I don't believe. I'm going to lose that. San Diego was in. The Cubs were in. The Brewers beat them. And Detroit was in. So 8 of the top 10 in payroll were in the postseason. Rough figuring there, going a little bit from memory. So it's where we sit as we start Major League Baseball season. I'm going to go back to my bold predictions, and then we're going to say goodbye for today. A slightly shorter show on Brewers opening day. I wanted to get more Brewers opening day guests, but their media press conferences were all set up in our live hour, so it was hard to get anybody to not be there, because the people that I would get have jobs related to that. My Brewers bold predictions. Yeah, and listen, keep receipts. Let me know how I did. I'll keep my own receipts as well, but you'll remind me, especially on the ones I'm wrong on. I've got the Brewers going 90 wins and 72 losses, and I think that would be second in the National League Central. Good enough to be a playoff team, but I think the Cubs might win the division. That's my bold prediction out of the gate. Brewers 90 wins as a wild card. Bryce Terang, top 5 in the National League in MVP voting. He could win it. That, again, pretty bold, but I think Bryce Terang is on the edge of being a star. And then the Brewers were 22nd in home runs a year ago in Major League Baseball. They finished with 166 home runs a year ago in baseball. I think they'll improve that above 180. If they were at 180, that would have been 17th in baseball from a year ago's numbers. So I've got the Brewers exceeding 180 home runs. Not a dramatic increase, up 14 rather, from a year ago. Jake Bauers would add to that. Contreras would add to that. I was going to say Chourio would add to that, but now he's going to open on the IL. The Brewers are not a banger team. They're not Harvey's wall bangers. They're not hitting the ball over the wall. It's not how this team is built. They're built with great defense, great speed, and can beat you in so many different ways, but they're not a power-centric team. I think that Vaughn will help, and it appears that Jake Bauers is going to be part of the mix here, and I think he will help. Contreras will help. When Chourio's back in the everyday lineup, he will help that number as well, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Can't wait for all of it. Again, a big thank you to our presenting sponsors, M3 Insurance. Go to m3ins.com. Also to Neuroscience Group, neurosciencegroup.com. Our partner sponsors, Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino, Bet Above the Rest, and Habish, and Rotier. We wrap things up on a Friday edition. Well, it feels like Friday, doesn't it? Thursday edition. We'll come back tomorrow, Brewers off day, and tell you all about the things that happened today. Thanks for being here and for being a regular listener or viewer of I Love Mondays, the podcast.